Good evening. Tonight I wanted to cover some additional fundamentals of shooting. The first is eye dominance, and that actually is something I like to establish before I even get into form with people. And the one aspect of form which eye dominance influences a lot for rifle shooting is cheek weld. So I'll only cover the aspect of cheek weld today. Eye dominance is your tendency to prefer visual input of one eye or with one eye over another. Many of us are familiar, in fact I'd say probably all of us are familiar with right hand and left hand dominance, where you prefer one side over the other. Similarly, the same applies to eyesight. However, your hand dominance does not necessarily relate to your eye dominance. I happen to be right eye dominant, right-handed, which for rifle shooting I think gives you a little bit more of an edge when you're first starting to shoot. You talk about people, oh, they're a natural, they just picked up the gun and they were able to put it to their shoulder and hit targets right away. I think most of those people are probably their eye dominance follows their right hand or left hand dominance. Those folks who go to rifle shoot specifically and they have a mismatch between their dominant eye and their right or left-handedness, they do some really odd, awkward stances, and I'll get into a little bit of that and how it appears and how you can pick up on it if you're teaching, let's say, your child or a friend how to shoot, those certain things to look for. But the first thing to do is establish eye dominance, and anybody who I've ever taken to a range, they know this. I have them do some really simple tasks. The first one, and probably the easiest one, which I'll cover here, is you take your hand and you make a little triangle and you look through it with both eyes open, and then you close one eye. I just close my left eye, and then you close your right eye, and you focus on something in the distance, and you'll notice through the camera that you see my right eye. I'm going to close my right eye so you can see that. That is my dominant eye. If you're focused on an object in the distance and you have both eyes open, you will see that object. When you close your dominant eye, you will lose that visual input, so you will no longer be able to see it. What you'll see is your hand, or you'll see something else, but you will not see that point in the distance that you're focused on. So that's how you establish your eye dominance. And because I was relatively close to the camera, you should have seen just one of my eyes, and that would have been my dominant eye, my right eye. So establish your eye dominance with whoever you're teaching to shoot, and then ask them, are you right-handed or left-handed? If they have an opposite dominance, so let's say they're left eye dominant, right-handed, it may actually make more sense to teach them to shoot left-handed, especially with a rifle, versus shoot right-handed and try to train their right eye. What will happen if you have an opposite dominance? This rifle is unloaded. Notice the chamber flag here. I'm going to take that out. What will happen if you are trying to lean over the rifle? I'm going to pose here. So this is a natural stance for me, and my right eye lines up very clearly, very naturally. If I'm left eye dominant, I actually have to roll my head over to establish the same line of sight across the bore and through the scope in this case, or iron sights, whatever you have mounted. So I'm going to look this way at the camera so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So here is a very natural hold. Notice my eye is lined up, my dominant eye is lined right up through the scope rings. If I am left eye dominant, my tendency is going to be to roll my head all the way over like this. And what that's doing, it's doing a couple things. One, it's very uncomfortable, and you want to be as comfortable as possible when you're shooting. And then the second thing that it's doing is you're actually getting way up higher, way up high above where you really want your line of sight to be. So a couple things you can do. If you want to stay, let's say you're left eye dominant right-handed and you want to shoot right-handed, you can close your left eye. If you're target shooting, you can actually put a patch over your left eye and force your right eye to be dominant in that situation. I think the tendency today for most competitive shooters it is a trend towards training yourself to shoot left-handed if you're left eye dominant. My wife's right-handed, left eye dominant. Both of my sons are, so I'm going to get a little experience teaching people how to shoot, with their non-dominant side in the next few years. But those are a couple options that you have. I talked a little bit about proper cheek weld. So what you want to establish. So on this stock, here's the comb of the stock here. You want to put as much of your cheek on that and just become really one with that firearm. As it moves, even the slightest amount, you want to make sure that you are part of that. And it's almost like it's one rigid body. And you can't do that if you're using the opposite eye, because what happens is you're having to get over here like this to get your head all the way over, versus if you're using your dominant eye, you can actually put much more of that cheek on versus having to come over like so. So it's very important to establish that aspect. So that's eye dominance and cheek weld and how the two interact with one another. I hope you enjoyed. Have a nice evening.